Now, do I want the linguine with clam sauce or the tuna Diane?
Nori?
Oh, it is so good to see you, Gregor. Oh my goodness, I can't believe it's taken this long.
Neither can I. You're looking well.
As do you. So, what made you pick this place?
I don't know. Conveniently located, beautiful, serves the best food. So maybe that had something to do with it.
Greg, that was not very nice.
Nori.
Relax, I'm only teasing you back. Should be used to it by now.
Don't worry. I am. Decided what you want yet?
Not quite. It's either going to be the linguine with white clam sauce or the tuna Diane, but I know what I want to drink.
Cabernet.
You got it.
Mm-hmm. Excuse me, a bottle of the Cabernet, please? Thanks. I figured neither of us needs to be the designated driver.
Not in this city, anyway. Nobody needs a car.
Back in Maine, I drove my family's car.
Yes, you had mentioned that. Was it a nice one?
It was fine. Toyota got me where I had to get to.
That's good. You know, having never been to this restaurant, I'm so glad you chose it. I look for any excuse to come to the Upper West Side.
Is that so?
Oh, yeah. Central Park, Lincoln Center, a few legendary museums, all kinds of nice sights and interesting people who mostly love culture. Naturally, you find a few stragglers who don't appreciate what's in this part of town.
Yeah, my family, it's made up of earthy folks. If they were to visit me and tour the city, they might be those stragglers you speak of.
I'm not saying all tourists are stragglers.
I know you're not. Take it easy.
I need to make myself clear. The road to hell is paved with misunderstandings.
You say so.
So, what's it like being in a show at the Lyceum Theater? You didn't know it, but I saw the play a few months ago. It told a great story, and you were fabulous.
You came? Why didn't you stop by afterward?
I don't know. I wanted to. It has been 4 years since we've seen one another in person, after all. Maybe I felt weird at the time.
You feel weird. That's not the Nori I know.
Well, the Nori you know has changed in some 4 years. Doesn't everyone?
I suppose you could argue that, but at their core, leopards never change their stripes.
Oh yes, don't get me wrong. I'm still Nori at heart. Just a better version of myself, I think. Nori 2.0, if you will.
I read somewhere that the human body sheds all of its skin cells once every 7 years or so. So you could say that all of us become new versions of ourselves with time. Physically, anyway.
Right. As you just said, some things about a person can never change.
Like your natural gift for painting. You still doing that, I hope?
That's a trick question.
You got me. It's how you make your living now, of course. You didn't know it, but I visited your exhibition at the Guggenheim more than once this past year.
How did you like it?
Gorgeous. I mean, truly the mark of genius. How you captured those literary heroines, it felt as though I knew them personally. Books I've read all my life were suddenly fresh again. I think my favorites were Daisy Buchanan and Catherine Earnshaw.
I'm really proud of Kathy's portrait. Of course, I also had to include Ophelia, Jane Eyre, Elizabeth Bennet, Clarissa Dalloway, Anna Karenina.
Hey, you don't have to sell it to me. I'm already on board with your work.
You're very kind.
Oh, not at all. And I wanted to return to your question. Why did you enjoy the play so much?
Well, like I said, That story was unbelievably compelling. At its surface, it's like Romeo and Juliet, but the author expanded so timely. If it had been a musical, I'd call it the West Side Story of today. Just masterful. And I liked seeing you do your thing, play a supporting role and completely steal the show. I remember seeing pictures in your apartment from when you did Malvolio on 12th Night.
God, that was a long time ago. I was just out of college.
Your hair was longer then, I noticed. Luckily, you're one of those guys who can pull off a variety of looks. Helpful when you're an actor.
I appreciate that. You know, now you mention it, I miss doing musicals.
I did 4 of them with my college drama department. Well, painted the sets for them. I'd love to get back into that again once the museum exhibition is over.
I know a few designers working on Broadway. Perhaps I could introduce you to them and introduce them to your talents.
I'd like that.
What were the musicals you worked on?
Bat Boy, A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum, My Fair Lady, and Andrew Lloyd Webber's Song and Dance. Of the 4, My Fair Lady was my favorite. I got to create Victorian England, and in fact, doing that piece eventually inspired what you saw at the Guggenheim.
Sounds like a dream for you.
Oh, it was, only I wasn't dreaming. You know, I can't believe I never told you about my dabbling in theater.
Maybe it's our own fault.
What do you mean?
Well, way back when, it was all about my acting and your painting. We were so focused on our own crafts that we never thought to talk about where they could intersect.
Damn shame.
But all worked out in the end, didn't it? Neither of us gave up.
And we're talking about it now. Better late than never.
The best piece of advice I can give in the artistic world, by the way, is if you want to get a big laugh out of your audience, make something violent happen to a mime.
A mime?
Yeah. In the many up and down trials of my career, that seemed to be the only constant when it comes to comedy. Otherwise, what makes something funny is purely subjective.
You could say the same thing about what brings someone to cry.
Indeed, you could.
What makes you cry?
Not much. In fact, I can't remember the last time I cried over something.
Huh. More you know.
Have you finally decided what to order?
Hey, don't rush the lady. But yeah, I'm gonna go with as soon as I am. This is a special evening, and I can make linguine with white clam sauce at home, so...
Good thinking. I'm getting the jambalaya. It's one of the specials.
Who knew they could also make Nolan's cuisine here? This restaurant is one of a kind. You done good, Greg. Hey, I almost forgot to ask, what's next for you? I saw that the play is a limited engagement.
Oh, I have a callback for a Chekhov production off-Broadway.
I included Irina from The Seagull in my painting series.
You did indeed, but it's not that. It's 3 sisters, and I'm reading for the role of the one brother.
Well, break a leg. I have no doubt you will blow the panel away.
What's interesting about the piece is that for 90% of the story, it's we've got to get to Moscow. We've got to get to Moscow. We're going to Moscow, but they're never going to get to Moscow.
Sounds riveting.
Oh, maybe I'm simplifying.
I know. But you got to promise me you'll audition for a musical after this one.
Oh, don't worry. I've made that promise to myself already. Oh, hang on a sec. Hi.
We're ready to order. I'll take the tuna Diane.
And I'd like the jambalaya special, please. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. Even the servers here dress like they're going to the hottest soiree in town.
Well, as far as they're concerned, this is the hottest soiree in town. After all, it pays their bills.
True, true.
What do you think of this economy right now?
I think the Wall Street bull is tired of people taking photos with his testicles.
So you haven't been following the Dow?
Not especially. I prefer to let the economy come as it may and deal with its demons as they escape.
I got you. I only asked because recently I bought some stock. So following the ticker is kind of mandatory for me now.
Do you have more of an interest in macro or microeconomics?
Micro.
I bet I know why. So you can tie it into studying the business of commercial theater.
An excellent guess. You know me very well.
Yes, I do. Give me a lesson.
Here? Now?
Why not? This restaurant is packed. It will probably be some time before our food arrives, and I so love expanding my horizons.
Huh. Well, I'll give you something basic. The concept of elasticity.
You mean like rubber bands?
Very funny. No, it has to do with the ratio of price to demand. This ratio is always changing, as some products are more financially elastic than others. With an elastic product, the price affects the demand for it. With an elastic product, not so much.
What determines which is which?
The product itself, usually. As you predicted, I'll use live entertainment as an example. Let's say you have an amazing play, right, that's all the rage in town, and yet is being mounted in a theater with very few seats. Ticket prices can be hiked to high heaven, and people will still buy them because they don't really have an option. Demand is not affected by price. This is inelasticity.
Okay.
But if you raise the price of tickets for a lukewarm show in a big house, demand for them will likely plummet, which makes sense. That's an elastic product. I'm simplifying all this, of course, but I think you get the picture.
I never thought I'd live to see the day where you'd actually put your master's in economics to work, and for me, no less.
Well, I had to get it, in case the undergraduate degree in acting didn't pull through. It was my failsafe.
But not your passion.
Correct.
For me, it was do or die. I never had a backup like death if I wasn't doing what I loved. There's a certain freedom, a certain satisfaction I get only when I'm at my easel. I think it's a God complex to create where once was nothing. I happen to be very, very lucky. Sometimes I wonder where I'd be if I wasn't able to make a living as an artist. Would I be homeless? Depressed? Scary to think about.
Then don't think about it. You can't dwell too much on the what ifs of life.
It's my nature. I can't regret the lives I didn't lead, for better or for worse. But a few of them I ruminate on all the time.
Speaking of college, I've been taking some philosophy classes in my spare time.
Oh, have you?
Yeah, just for my own enrichment. We're alike in that way. I've always been interested in the bigger questions of life, even as a kid. The course instructor is a free-thinking monk and a very popular man at the universities where he teaches.
You must have plenty of charisma.
Oh, yeah. I've heard he converts students into taking on minors in philosophy. I also understand that he has a background in performance art, which should explain his animated approach to lectures. No one falls asleep when he's at the podium.
Well, all the best clergymen tell sermons that educate as well as entertain.
You still go to church?
Yes, I do. Many of my friends from before, let's say, have lost their faith, but I'm glad mine has stayed with me. I could tell you one story that solidified everything. Back when I was in high school, I had a magical teacher.
A magical teacher.
Not literally, of course, but not unlike your charismatic monk. She had a way of reaching into one's soul and bringing out the best in you. We were green, foolish schoolgirls trying to figure out who we were, but she encouraged us to see the world beyond our mirrors.
I see. So she molded you into being better people.
Not merely better people, more giving and empathetic people. She herself did charity work in her spare time like you wouldn't believe. Smart as a whip. And she was in the later stages of cystic fibrosis. She lived longer than most who have that disease, but one night she came to me in a dream. A few days later, I found out that she died that same night. I never doubted my spirituality again after that.
Oof. That is pretty extraordinary. I can't say I relate much.
You don't believe in God?
No, I do. I believe in a God that judges based on how good you are to others. So I call myself God-fearing, if not a subscriber to any organized religion. Your late teacher sounds like the kind of woman who would reinforce a belief in anyone's God.
That's fair. I agree that what you said is part of the divine's nature, but I often have trouble pinpointing other aspects of it.
Like what?
I believe there's order in the universe that had to be formed by a designer that did not need to be created itself, what most people would call God. But I also wonder whether God is truly omnipotent or if he relinquished that side of himself, what most people would call free will in humans.
What are your thoughts on divine omniscience?
I would think that any being that can create this universe from nothing has to have knowledge beyond what us mere mortals can comprehend.
Nothing can come from nothing, except where everything in existence is concerned. Huh.
What else do they address in your philosophy class?
Well, the professor wouldn't stop talking about it. Either that and eternity. It annoyed me at first, but then it really disturbed me.
How so?
I mean, think about it, Nori. How can we be free if God knows everything we are going to do before we do it?
Maybe God relinquished that side of himself, like I said.
Yeah, he talked about people who try to deny omniscience and omnipotence.
And
And he said it didn't work. There's something about the divine having to be perfect, because if it were limited by something, it wouldn't be divine. To be honest, it was difficult to understand. But not as difficult as that eternity stuff he kept talking about.
well, don't leave me hanging.
You really want to talk about this insanity?
Let's just say, as an artist, I sympathize with God. Remember the complex?
I had a feeling you were going to say that.
But seriously, aren't we all trying to do something perfect? Something we hope will be remembered forever? You and your acting, and me and my painting?
Okay, I get it. Where to begin? Actually, his main point was that eternity has no beginning.
And no end.
That's right. To be eternal is to exist outside of time. Words like before and after don't apply to God.
I knew that.
So you must know more about a lot of things than you let on.
Maybe. Please continue.
Anyway, eternity has been referred to as the complete possession of your life all at once.
All at once with no beginning and no change at all?
None. It's completely different than human life. I mean, like, we start as children and we grow into adults.
Some of us never make it there, Gregor.
True. But we never possess our complete life all at once. Maybe it would do something.
You sound almost jealous. Would you really want to know everything? To have no mystery about your life?
To see a world in a grain of sand and heaven in a wildflower. Hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour.
Well played. I so adore William Blake.
But I don't know, Nori. The idea of eternity itself bothers me to some degree.
It bothers you that God sees your entire life before you can?
It bothers me that my whole life has already been written, and I have to live out the script whether I like it or not.
Don't worry, I think God is a fan of improv.
You're very silly.
No, really, a perfect being wouldn't want puppets, would he?
Perhaps not, but how can he know what I'm going to do before I do it? And why doesn't he step in and stop me when I'm about to really fuck things up?
He's giving you the freedom to screw things up, and we've both done a good job of that in some regards.
Does freedom even make sense if he knows what's going to happen, and so it must happen?
Oh, I see. You think the future already exists because God knows it.
Yeah.
That's wrong.
Great. Another philosophy class is exactly what I needed tonight.
Look, you said it yourself. There is no before or after for God. In fact, it reminds me a little of Albert Einstein's theory of relativity.
I'm going to hate myself for this, but go ahead. Tell me about Einstein.
I can't really. I mean, I don't fully get it, but his main point is that time is relative to an observer.
So time is not the same for all people.
Right. As objects approach the speed of light, time slows down.
At the rate we're talking now, our food will never arrive. Is that what you're saying?
Must you always be so tightly wound?
It's beneficial for an actor to hide behind the proverbial curtain.
I'll just give you an example then. GPS satellites have clocks in them to coordinate with our cell phones.
Yeah, and?
And the clocks in space are moving much faster than clocks on Earth, which means they tick more slowly. But the satellites have another problem. Don't look at me like that.
Sorry.
Uh-huh. The other problem is that gravity is weaker for the satellites, which curve space and time, thus making their clocks tick faster than clocks on Earth.
So which is it then, faster or slower?
Overall, the clocks in orbit will tick faster than those here.
Meaning what exactly?
It means that time is relative to God too, or that God might have a different relation to time than we do.
Look, I'm a visual learner, and you're an artist. So paint me a picture, because I'm not quite getting it.
Well, imagine a bicycle wheel with spokes radiating out from the center. The circumference of the circle represents the historical timeline, and each spoke touches a different moment of history. Ancient Greece, Victorian England, and our dinner tonight, let's say.
Okay.
But all the spokes are connected at the center of the circle. God exists at the center of the circle. He sees all things at once.
And your point is merely because God sees history all at once doesn't mean he causes it.
That's right. He knows what we freely choose, but in an eternal time frame, or rather, no time frame at all.
In other words, we are free to improvise in the divine script.
Yep. Our choices matter, and they shape our destiny.
Can I ask you why you read so much about this stuff?
Entanglement.
What?
There was an article about entanglement in this science periodical I found. It was fascinating. Quantum mechanics says that two particles can be entangled over great distances faster than the speed of light can even travel.
Destined to be linked, even when apart.
And held together by...
Oh, perfect timing.
What?
I mean, it looks like our food is here.
Oh, fabulous.
Oh, it looks so good.
Well, then let's dig in.
You don't have to tell me twice.
You, remember when you cooked dinner for me?
Sure. We're having a night in for once.
You made some kind of casserole dish. Real comfort food. I remember being surprised that a man with so many talents already could also cook a fine meal.
I can't take credit for it. I wasn't self-taught.
Who taught you to cook?
My parents. but mostly my mother. She's also the reason I can bake, too.
I wouldn't call myself a baker if all I could make was chocolate chip cookies.
For your information, I've expanded my repertoire since then. Now I can bake lattice pies, cupcakes, tarts, even macaroons. All it takes is a cookbook, some practice, the will to do it, and the patience of a saint.
I can imagine. I'm better than I used to be, but sometimes I still burn the cornflakes.
How is that possible?
Call it a miracle of the kitchen gods.
How very Taoist of you.
Taoism. I remember learning about that in a world religions course. It also had lessons on Shinto, Buddhism, and Hinduism, as well as the three children of Abraham.
The what?
The three children of Abraham: Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. They are called that because all three have roots in the Old Testament, but like most siblings, they don't always get along. I think that's terribly sad.
It is. You think about war.
And America's internal divisions.
You can't help but wonder why people can't see their common humanity.
Do you see it?
What'd you say?
Nothing. Did you know that material wealth is sanctioned under Hindu doctrine? It's just as important to them, spiritually, as morality and sensual fulfillment.
Interesting. Many religious people value many religious people value poverty, or modest living at least.
Do you know about Hinduism's concept of God?
That I remember reading somewhere. Most consider it to be a polytheistic faith, but Hindus argue that they worship one deity that simply wears many masks.
Exactly. And they believe other faiths worship this same God, so they preach religious tolerance. Many rivers, one ocean, they call it.
And Buddhists are similar. They aren't keen on pressuring people to convert.
We could all learn a thing or two of letting people just be who they are. How's the jambalaya?
Spicy, but delicious. How about your tuna?
I've had it prepared this way before. When it's done well, you'd swear you were eating beef, not fish. And this chef knows what they're doing.
I'll never steer you wrong when it comes to the best eateries in the city.
Remember that time we went to the food court in the Plaza Hotel?
They got a little bit of everything.
Tell me about it. And I had never been inside there. It felt just like Eloise. I've been back a few times since then, but only alone.
Only alone?
Uh-huh. I never go to the Plaza Hotel with anybody else.
That's interesting. Why?
No particular reason.
Okay.
So, you seen any good movies lately?
I finally got around to watching Bette Midler in The Rose.
You hadn't seen it?
No, but this cousin of mine, he got me hooked on films curated by a company called Criterion. They have an impressive array of movies in their collection that they release on Blu-ray with special features, if they're deemed significant enough.
Special features?
Essays, interview footage, that sort of thing.
It sounds wonderful. I'm gonna have to look into this company myself. What did you think of The Rose, anyway?
It was a very thought-provoking tragedy.
I know. And like us as artists. Take what I did recently, for instance. I marathoned A Star is Born.
All three of them.
Yep, all three in a row. What's fascinating to me is the way they cast the leading lady in each of them. For Judy Garland, Barbra Streisand, and Lady Gaga, all were deliberately cast to be at the peak of their careers when they played their roles.
Oh, I hadn't thought of that.
And of course, everyone knows how the stories end. In Judy's case, however, it was only she who met the tragic end in real life.
She was the world's greatest entertainer, some say, and yet she had a very sad existence.
A good chunk of it wasn't even her fault. During The Wizard of Oz, even, the studio bigwigs were making her pop pills and preventing her from eating a normal diet. She was only 16. It was inevitable that such things would lead to greater trouble down the road.
She didn't even reach the age of 50, and yet she'll live on forever in her body of work.
It's something we all strive for. Not dying young, I mean, but being remembered for what we created in this life. A legacy. Writing on the wall that will tell people centuries from now that you were here.
There's a very fine line between dying for some art and dying for your art. I would say Judy fell into the latter, as did Bette Midler's character in The Rose.
And I believe that, above all, they wanted to be loved.
To think that people who dare to find purpose and truth through their craft and also seek love from others, sometimes they pay the ultimate price.
Right? It's not like they're asking for much. We are not asking for much.
Do you ever worry about that? About sacrificing something for the sake of art or love?
I would say I've sacrificed a part of my sanity for both. Occasionally, I paint some of my best work when I'm intensely angry or sad. In fact, about a quarter of what you see in my Guggenheim commission was created during those turbulent moments. As for love,
You don't have to dive that deep if you don't want to.
no, I can give you an example. Once upon a time, I was in a friends with benefits relationship. I should have known better than to think I wouldn't develop an affection for this fellow.
What happened?
I did my best to be good to him, to show my appreciation and how glad I was to have him be part of my life, and it backfired. He felt smothered and got pretty upset with me. And I felt so guilty. I never meant to step over the line or make him feel uncomfortable. My intentions were pure, but he didn't believe so. It was all a huge misunderstanding. And as for my sanity, I didn't have a moment's peace for the better part of a year until I knew I had been forgiven.
Nori, you can't allow someone like that to have such a hold over you. You must find happiness within yourself.
Well, you did ask what I sacrificed for love, and I told you the truth. Well-being for others. It's something I feel I must do. My cross to bear.
Perhaps that's something to work out then.
Perhaps. It's also something I can't really control. When I was in that situation I just mentioned, it ate away at me. I didn't want it to bother me that much, but I couldn't help it. Only when we were on decent terms again, the pain stopped.
Yeah, Nori.
What is it?
I guess it doesn't really matter. Wow, you polished off that tuna Diane.
And I don't see a scrap of jambalaya left in your bowl.
You have a room for dessert? They make their own gelato here.
Sign me up. I am craving some pistachio gelato.
Nah, I'm getting a Neapolitan. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. Waiter, 2 gelatos, please. 1 pistachio and 1 Neapolitan.
My family has roots in Naples. We should switch orders.
Real cute. You know I'm allergic to tree nuts.
What's your heritage?
To tell you the truth, I really don't know.
How can you not know? I've never met anyone who didn't know their ancestral background.
Well, now you have, I mean, if I had to guess, I think my last name is French Canadian, but my mother has the red hair and green eyes of an Irish lass. Couldn't tell you.
Wow, I have my heritage broken down into the percentiles.
Which are?
75% Italian, 12.5% British, and 12.5% Ukrainian. It's a bit of an odd situation, really. My father is fully Italian, and my mom's mother is as well. But my maternal grandfather has no Italian in him whatsoever.
Ooh.
He is only British and Ukrainian.
That is curious indeed.
Of course, it's a good enough mix that I can sample the best cuisine from each country.
Always a plus.
And since we were just talking about movies, I should tell you that I may be a distant descendant of Alfred Hitchcock.
Oh, where'd you get that from?
Research. I'm pretty sure he's connected to my grandfather's British line somewhere. Unless I misread and my ancestor's name was actually Albert Hitchkins. Oh, that would be embarrassing.
I'm willing to give you the benefit of the doubt. If he's your relative, I hope you're a fan of his films. Otherwise, you risk disgracing the legacy.
Not funny, Greg. Of course I appreciate his body of work. He was the greatest horror director who ever lived. And it's because he is so refreshingly different from the slasher gorefest directors you see in today's cinema. It doesn't help that I'm horribly squeamish.
Sanguiphobia?
What?
Come on. You're a stickler for grammar. Break it down.
I already have fear of blood. And yes, any blood that isn't my own.
The miracle of Hitchcock, as you implied, is that he scares you with what you can't see. The most gore you see in Psycho's shower scene is just chocolate sauce rolling down the drain.
You know, maybe your parents would be able to tell you about your bloodline if you asked them. Yours probably has an interesting history too.
I'm not sure if they could, and I probably wouldn't ask.
Are you not close with your family? Why did you leave Maine?
There wasn't much for me there, and I knew that if I was going to take this acting career seriously, I'd have to go to Los Angeles or New York. I consider the East Coast a part of my identity, so New York it was. One of the first things I learned here was that it's not Houston Street, but Houston Street. One of the best ways to assimilate anywhere is to learn its history.
I wouldn't know.
Allow me to blend a fragment of the city's history with the artistic world we admire so much.
Ooh, do go on.
The Hudson Theater is both the oldest and the newest theater on Broadway. After being out of commission for decades, it reopened and is hosting productions to this day.
What a beautiful paradox. The highest natural point in Brooklyn is located at Greenwood Cemetery. Leonard Bernstein, Fred Ebb, and Frank Morgan are all buried there.
When the Rockettes dance at Radio City Music Hall, they have microphones in their tap shoes, so you can hear every move.
The two lions in front of the Fifth Avenue Public Library are named Patience and Fortitude, two traits that all New Yorkers are said to have.
I don't know about all of them. The oldest concert hall in NYC is Carnegie, but the second oldest is actually the Music Hall in the Snug Harbor complex of Staten Island.
Hey, you said before that if your family ever came here, they'd be the cultural stragglers. Does that mean they haven't been here to visit?
No, but that's fine. For holidays and such, I hop a train and go home for a few days. We all have baggage, naturally, but for the most part, my parents are good people.
You can't fool me, Greg. I know that you consider this city to be your true home, as do I.
Well, truth be told, sometimes I envy you being a native.
You shouldn't. It's like I wasn't a native for the first 17 years of my life. My parents wouldn't let me go anywhere, didn't want me exploring. I spent most of my time within four walls. So really, it's like we're in the same boat.
Small doses of Maine are very doable. In fact, sometimes I think it's healthy to get out of the urban rush periodically.
But not for nothing, the clear ease with which you navigate New York, anybody would swear you'd lived here your whole life.
That's nice of you to say.
But I mean it. You see, it wasn't until I turned 18 that I went to college in Manhattan and started experiencing all it had to offer. After graduation, I moved back into my parents' house, but I was free of my shackles. And then sometime later, I met you. And we went on adventures that created an even larger sense of wanderlust in me. It was the greatest feeling in the world. Up to that point, at least.
Up to that point, what changed?
Nothing changed. Something occurred.
a monumental event.
What do you think of human nature?
I think everyone is different.
Obviously, but what is our essence? Do you think people are inherently good? Why can bad things happen to people who do the right thing? Or were we just put on this planet as a chaotic good, meant to love but unwittingly cause disaster?
Where is this topic coming from?
Never you mind. Answer my questions.
Fine. I I think humans exist to take care of one another, but are not perfect in their essence, and so make mistakes that do harm, even if their intentions are pure at the time. Like when a hurricane destroys a coastal town, does it mean to bring all that sorrow, or is it just doing its thing?
I don't have an answer. Do you believe we each have a soulmate?
No, there are too many people in the world. But similarly to you, I do believe we are born good till a random combination of interior and exterior problems bring us to evil. That's the way I see it. Does that answer your question?
Mostly. But how do you know that's what I believe?
Because I know how you are.
You really think so, huh?
Nori.
Earlier, I was referring to that night.
Which night?
The night when I gave you my virginity.
Oh. What about it?
Do you ever think about it?
Every once in a while.
I remember it like it was yesterday. You had an audition in the morning, and I was working on a new painting in the afternoon that I just had to complete.
Only time we could get together that day was in the evening.
Yeah. I knew your apartment wasn't far away and that it was bound to happen sooner or later, but I told my parents I wasn't going to come home, and I got some flack for that.
We picked you up a toothbrush at CVS.
And we had an unhealthy dinner at a dive bar. When we got to your place, the first things I did were brush my teeth and take a shower. I think the soap you were using was Irish Spring. It had an amazing fragrance.
Yeah, that's right.
Sometimes, when I'm walking around town, I get a whiff of that fragrance. Probably from a passerby, but it instantly brings me back in time.
The five senses do have that power.
Afterward, I just sort of climbed into bed with you, and we went from there, one step at a time. You were so careful, respectful of how far I wanted to go. I was nervous.
So was I.
You?
Oh, yeah. I'd never been with a virgin. I didn't know what to expect from your inexperience. But what was most importantly to me was that you felt okay.
More than okay. I felt safe. And I loved being that close to somebody. I wasn't just sexually awakened, but emotionally as well. I don't know if I've ever again gone through something so wondrous.
Yeah. Don't put me on a pedestal, Nori. I know you've had other lovers.
As have you. But for me, the emotions of that night were never recaptured.
For me, at least.
I realized a long time ago that it didn't mean as much to you.
I'm sorry.
And here we are now. Why did you come, Gregor?
Excuse me?
In these 4 years, we've been in touch on a spotty basis. I've seen your social media posts with other women. You've seen mine with other men. Hell, I started to miss having you around. So I contacted you and said we should have dinner, but you didn't have to come. So why did you?
Can we backtrack for a minute?
Sure.
You You must remember why we stopped seeing one another in person.
Of course, but I've always been curious to hear your side of things.
There's stuff that you don't know.
What kind of stuff?
The last time we saw one another, we grabbed lunch because we both had a window in between appointments. We were broken up by then, but we were still on very good terms. At the end of lunch, you half-jokingly said, "I love you very much." I wasn't myself that day, though.
Why not?
I just found out my older sister, who had the most beautiful wedding I had ever seen, was divorcing her husband. And my brother-in-law is one of the greatest guys I've ever met. I never in a million years thought that their marriage would end. Being out of Maine, I didn't even know they were having problems. My faith in love shattered that day. So when you told me you loved me, it felt like a mockery and a road I wasn't ready to walk down again.
And that's why you got angry.
Right. I had to push you away, Nori. And I knew the only way to do that was to cut ties with you. Both of us are aware of how persistent you can be.
I walked away that afternoon so confused and hurt. Again. I've said that I loved you multiple times since the day we met, and every time I got the same response.
Don't go there.
Not yet. That was your answer every damn time. You want to talk about human nature? This is mine. I spent so many nights trying to sleep, but actually wondering what I could do to make myself enough to be worthy of your love.
You're always worthy of it. You just didn't quite.
Nevertheless, that explanation didn't answer the one question I still have.
Which is?
Why did you break up with me in the first place?
It's that I didn't see our lives as being compatible. You were born in this city. I was still bonded to my dreary hometown in Maine.
That's not with you whenever you needed to.
I know, but there was also the question of our careers. You were getting so skilled with your craft, and mine was beginning to stagnate. I felt like I was going to hold you down, and you didn't deserve that. You also deserve someone who was more invested than I was from day one, as you alluded to earlier. I should have been proud of you. Instead, I was indifferent. And I still don't quite know why my heart was skewing that way.
The day you left was one of the worst days of my life. I hated you.
I don't blame you. But I saw you walking away, and that was my only option. In fact, it might be time for me to get going now.
That's right, go. Return to your little perfect existence as if nothing ever happened with me. Walk out of my life like you always do.
I never meant to hurt you.
Nor I you. God, now I hate myself for having loved you. Would you forgive me for all this hatred? It goes against everything I believe in.
Only if you can forgive me.
I already have. Quite a while ago, in fact.
Thanks.
You want to know when it was exactly? The moment I realized I had become you.
I'm not following.
Remember Nori 2.0? I have changed and grown in the space between. Unfortunately, and maybe thanks to you, not all of it was for the better.
Look, I still don't understand. Are you purposely being cryptic, or?
I had been in one relationship for over a year, but you were never far from my mind. And it was a problem in that relationship. He knew that you still owned a part of my heart. When we broke up, I didn't want to hurt him, but I still did. And that's when I saw that I had become more like you than ever. I even took that guy's virginity.
Nori, you,
My love for Linton is like the foliage in the woods. Time will change it, I'm well aware, as winter changes the trees. My love for Heathcliff resembles the eternal rocks beneath, a source of little visible delight, but necessary. Nellie, I am Heathcliff. He's always, always in my mind, as my own being.
no wonder you included Catherine Earthshaw in your literary heroine paintings.
How could I not? When I read Wuthering Heights, that quote rocked me to my core. It explains so perfectly why my affection for you has lasted this long and may never cease to exist.
You'll not feel this way forever, I can assure you.
You can't say that. Contrary to what you said, you don't know me. We weren't together long enough for you to really know me like that. And oh, how I wanted to know you in such a way. But time and time again, you built walls around yourself. You've never even asked what my real name is.
Excuse me?
You're a smart man. Did you really think Nori would be the name of a mostly Italian girl? My friends and family call me that because I'm always eating seafood.
I don't know what to say.
There's nothing to say.
Why have you held on for so long?
Honestly, because nobody in my life has made me feel the way you do.
Meaning what?
Meaning you give off an aura. Your mere presence brings something to me I can't adequately explain it. Your mind, how you talk, the way you look at me with those eyes. And I will have conversations with you that I wouldn't have otherwise. I look at you and it's like I'm home, which is more than I can say for how I feel a lot of the time. The pressures of the art world, family drama, this very city sometimes threatens to drown a woman, but when you're near me, you're like a life preserver, and I have been treading water, lost in the sea for 4 years.
I'm here with you now.
You're late. Damn it. I promised myself nothing would make me cry tonight. I promised.
Never like seeing you cry.
I know. But you deserve to see it for all the grief you've caused me. When we had that fight, I thought I had lost you forever. I'm grateful just to be here with you. You're close enough to touch, yet you might as well be a million miles away.
During these 4 years, although I didn't see you, I always suspected that you'd be right there if I needed you.
But I suppose you've never needed me, and that breaks my heart.
What do you want me to do?
Come home with me. I don't live with my parents anymore. Let's be to one another what we couldn't be before.
I don't know if I should do that.
Why not?
I just got out of a relationship. It was a very good one, but it had run its course. I'm not ready to jump back into the water. I need time to grieve it.
Oh.
I'm not saying never. I'm just not today or tomorrow. You understand?
I guess I do. You know something? I just had me a crazy idea.
What is it?
For my next painting series, you know I've always painted a wide variety of subjects, but I've never had a true muse. Gregor, could you be my muse?
What does that entail?
Oh, it's very simple. You become the subject of my work. There's no commitment involved. You just need to be okay with being immortalized on canvas. Yes, I will paint you portraying different characters of the theater, musical theater. Everything from Curly in Oklahoma to Roger in Rent. the ultimate way to combine our disciplines. Maybe we could even exhibit them at a gallery with a performance space.
Nori, slow down.
I can't. It'll be a companion to my literature series, which was only made up of women. I can picture it all in my head. You've got to say you'll do this.
I may, on one condition.
What's that?
You help me write a play.
Me? But I'm only a visual artist.
So? You got the aptitude for creativity that I just don't. I normally just read words from a script, but lately I've been wanting to try my hand at crafting those words. To be frank, I was inspired by the women in your creation, the heroines of literature. Maybe it'll work and maybe it won't. But with your boundless imagination guiding me, it'll definitely be fulfilling.
Taking a risk like that? Wow. Hardly the Gregor I know.
Well, think of it as the development of Gregor 2.0.
Now, where have I heard that before?
To successful collaborations.
To us. Hey, do you have any idea what you'd want your play to be about?
I have some ideas. One of them is about two people who haven't seen each other in a while, reuniting in a restaurant, and more or less picking up where they left off.
Please don't tell me that's the reason you agreed to come tonight. Dramaturgical research?
No. The reason I'm here is because, well, I had some unfinished business to take care of too. We both had to start over without each other. It's not an easy thing for anyone, but it is especially tough when you know the other person loved you more than life itself. You don't find that every day. You've got so much love to give, Nori. I really hope you find someone who's worthy of it.
What about you?
For now, I'm not going away.
I'm so glad that you're back. In some form.
As long as we're alive, the future is a blank page. And speaking of blank pages, I was thinking I would call it My Dinner with Nori.
Better be careful. As anyone can tell you, a bad title can kill your show before it even begins. Angela.
Who?
My real name is Angela. Life has a way of throwing folks for a loop. Do you believe it when Shakespeare says, all the world's a stage and we merely players?
Certainly. In fact, I'd go so far to say we're on quite a stage now, being watched by someone we don't know.
Learning closely guarded details of our lives?
And then letting us vanish into the ghost lights.
Into a new beginning, or perhaps just the start of another goodbye.